Hello, welcome to the Cloud Data and Analytics Tour. My name is Josh Good. I'm a VP of Product Marketing here at Qlik. And today I'm going to talk about driving action from data analytics in a cloud-oriented world. And if we think about this, we really need to look back at what's happened in the world in the last little bit and how things have changed. For years and years, there was indications that it might happen. Our increasing interconnected world was only increasing the risk of it happening in any given year. And in fact, multiple years in a row, major global organizations predicted that this was the year it would happen. They would pour millions into convincing others that they needed to be ready. Some would take up the call and declare they were taking action so they were ready, but not really do much of any substance. It's amazing how despite all the talk and all the information, few organizations were actually ready when it happened. I'm sure everyone has already guessed that I'm talking about the biggest, most long-lasting change of 2020, digital transformation. As the pandemic set in, organizations rose to the challenge. The disruption forced upon us became a catalyst for wider organizational change. Digital transformation projects, which normally would have taken months to plan and years to execute, were completed in weeks. Everyone suddenly had online ordering and delivered services remotely. Small companies, which previously would have been too small to have a robust digital presence, pivoted in days. Many organizations were forced to reimagine their core services. For example, Zumba, whose entire business was based on a network of independent instructors delivering in-person fitness classes, went from a standing start to a global online community in a matter of weeks. What powered this digital transformation? The cloud. The pandemic created conditions where people were open to radically new ways of working, but the ability to execute on these changes were only possible because of the agility and scale provided by cloud. Those small companies didn't need to set up a new online environment, they just needed to sign up. Zumba didn't need to procure new hardware, build from the bottom up, and then roll out slowly to ensure scalability. They only had to integrate existing cloud services and skin a branded UI. While the initial phase of the pandemic forced change and drove adoption, the benefits of cloud and SaaS will continue to be a competitive advantage for organizations who embrace it for three main reasons. Ease of access. Providing your entire workforce with reliable, secure access to what they need regardless of where they are, be working from home or sometime soon traveling around the world. Never needing to worry about if your systems are running and accessible because they are always available in the cloud. The second reason is rapid adoption. As innovations and new capabilities come out, all your teams get access to them right away without your IT organization needing to lift a finger to upgrade something. There's no longer the need to wait to improve usability, start using a new capability, or streamline a workflow. Agility and TCO is the third reason. As conditions change, you can change too. If usage spikes, you're covered. If a new use case develops, you can just start. And there's no need for people to be monitoring, upgrading, and optimizing. All of that is part of the service, so your total cost of ownership is reduced. Analytics is now benefiting from the power of cloud as organizations strive to maximize the competitive advantage possible from data and analytics. MedAir is a great example of a Qlik partnership based on the common goals and the use of data and analytics in the cloud. MedAir leverages Qlik to mobilize their humanitarian operations, monitor health outcomes, and serves the entire NGO sector as a beacon on how data can truly drive the way that humanitarian aid is delivered. Analysts and executives in headquarters in Switzerland have access to all the data and measurements at an aggregate level from the field operations and detailed financial management metrics, knowing every day how much MedAir can respond if a disaster strikes. Field analysts have dashboards for programming to measure and monitor priorities for delivering support. Field health professionals share data to learn what works and doesn't work, whether it be for maternal health, monitoring and measuring all the COVID-19 programs in the countries they serve, or supporting other NGOs within Qlik Cloud to better align programs and eliminate overlaps and waste. This is a best-in-class example on how data can save lives and how any organization can be more agile and lower their total cost of ownership by using cloud. You can help with this important relief work by scanning the QR code or going to the address on this slide. If you use an iPhone, search for code scanner on your phone. Qlik will match your donations. Join us in supporting organizations that provide relief for those facing difficulties from the pandemic, natural and humanitarian disasters, severe poverty, climate change, and social injustice. We can make it easier and more efficient with cloud, but we must not forget the ultimate objective. The life of an organization is made up of business moments. Big, some small, they occur at a variety of intervals and they are rarely predictable. However, in nearly all cases, they require some kind of action, a shift in direction in order to mitigate risks or take advantage of an opportunity. The problem is these moments can easily be missed, and when they are, they can translate into missed opportunities as well. What if you're a food delivery service or restaurant and you missed a warning signs of dissatisfaction about food quality because your systems are not capturing derivative data from social media? What if you're a bank and a sudden large withdrawal from key customers does not trigger any alerts in your system? What if you're a manufacturer and your systems fail to recognize anomalies in purchasing trends from large retailer accounts, leading to supply chain issues? What if you're an emergency services dispatcher and you're unable to reposition ambulances and fire trucks to optimize the coverage and response times? To seize these business moments, organizations need to arm their people with up-to-date data, real-time insights, and compel action. That's our vision, to enable active intelligence and close the gap that results in missed business opportunities. Ultimately, there are two parts to this. First, we deliver the component parts that enable us to build a complete end-to-end analytics data pipeline. The unique combination of data integration, analytics, and services offerings provide that foundation. We are leveraging it to close the gaps that prevent our customers from getting true value from data. The gaps between the relevant and actionable data, the actionable data and the actionable insights, and finally the insights and the value. We do this by freeing data from silos, making it accessible to all types of users so they can understand it and uncover new insights. Second, by building this pipeline of data and analytics, we start to exploit it by innovating along the supply chain to address new use cases and deliver new solutions that can bring active intelligence to life through real-time delivery of data and insights that don't just inform, but ultimately drive collaboration and trigger action. You, our customers and partners, consistently tell us you're looking for more than what a tool or point solution can deliver. Ultimately, the emergence of these new use cases represents a shift in the way we do analytics. I suspect many of you are familiar with the maturity models that represent the types of analytics we perform. The shift of descriptive to diagnostic to predictive and prescriptive analytics. The notion of shifting from one to the other based on a combination of value and difficulty isn't nearly as helpful as the idea of analytic maturity encompassing all forms of analytics across multiple use cases. Prescriptive analytics is often described as being how we can make things happen rather than actually making things happen. Qlik favors an alternative view where we focus on the way we do analytics and the types of data that enables us to apply different types of analytics use cases. This is where active intelligence is providing true value, not replacing what went before, but embracing it, capturing the ability to apply multiple analytics practices to increasing real-time data that is governed, trusted, and encompasses business logic, drives more value than just asking what we should do. To put that in context, the promise of active intelligence is to tap the pulse of your business before, during, and after you build your dashboard, and then action it. Like over a decade ago in the financial crisis, distressed organizations struggled to find needles or insights in haystack data. In response, Qlik was the enabler for data and analytic architectures moving from being passive to more reactive. Now we want to be your partner, enabling you to move from reactive to augmented to active intelligence. Regardless of your organization's current maturity, we know Qlik can be an essential catalyst for your digital transformation journey. Why do we know that? Because we asked. The vision of active intelligence is unique in the market, and while others may imitate in words, only Qlik delivers it in our products today. When we asked our most successful customers, this is what they told us on why Qlik was the right decision for them. First, it's critical to look holistically at what Qlik offers. We are more than visualization, more than dashboards, and more than data replication and movement. We are the facilitator of data-driven transformation. You see Qlik deployed across all use cases as customers get up and running quickly and simply in our cloud as individual teams right up to the most demanding complex enterprises environments, characterized by large amounts of data from many different data sources that need to be carefully managed and governed. Qlik excels across these use cases, handling even the most complex use cases simply. We are recognized by industry analysts for this. Our DI platform is designed with scale and high performance approach to data replication, which enables real-time data delivery. This, coupled with our change data capture, automation, and catalog, means that Qlik can support customers at scale others can only imagine. Next, Qlik's patented associative technology unquestionably leads to more insights than any other platform. We don't use a query or SQL-based approach that forces users to drill down a specific predefined path, leaving data behind with each step. Qlik users find as much value in what's not associated as what is. None of our competitors can do this. Furthermore, it is this foundation that has meant that Qlik has been able to rapidly innovate and lead it with our augmented analytics offerings. Search is just a feature, and our Insight Advisor leverages AI, our cognitive engine, and machine learning to provide a digital assistant across the data supply chain. This enables us to engage more users through conversational analytics, drive collaboration across the analytics lifecycle, and break down the industry's most significant barrier to value, data literacy of users. Couple this with our ability to support all analytical use cases and then embed the analytics where they are needed the most, we enable organizations to provide analytics to everyone and adopt true data-driven cultures. Finally, only Qlik provides an end-to-end governance framework that enables IT to collaborate with the business to make governed, approved data sets easily available throughout the enterprise. When you take this framework and apply it to an open platform with unique hybrid cloud deployment options, Qlik stands alone as the choice for customers looking to avoid lock-in and address local governance needs and reduce costs. In summary, our customers tell us complexity, self-service, governance, scalability, and cost predictability are key needs only Qlik can holistically address. The result is lower TCO and more business value. To bring a little more color to what I've been discussing, Denise LaForgia is going to join us and show you a demo. Pay close attention and you'll see how you too can free it, find it, understand it, and action it in Qlik Cloud. In other words, Denise, take it away and show us active intelligence.
Thanks, Josh, and hi, everyone. So I'm going to show you a quick demo of how easy it is to create apps and visualizations and explore your insights with some help from Qlik's Associative Engine and Insight Advisor. And then I'll also show you how some of our newer capabilities allow you to monitor your data and insights in real time so you can take action when your data changes.
So I'm going to start out in the Cloud Hub and I'm in my personal space, which is where I can keep all of my personal content and data that I'm working on. I can see some of the charts and visualizations that I've selected to monitor directly from my Cloud Hub, so I can access these as soon as I log into the Hub without even having to go into an app. I can also see the apps that I'm working on, and I can see a lot of the data that I have access to as well. And with some of our data catalog capabilities, I can actually take a closer look at some of these data sets before I decide which ones to use for an app. So I can see some information about the rows, the fields, the size of this data file. I can also profile the data so I can get a better understanding of its contents. So I can see some additional information here. I can also take a look at some sample data so I can get a better understanding of the values within the data set. And if this data set included particularly sensitive information or PII data, anything like that, I could actually add a property so that when I'm using this data in the future, or if other users are using this data set, they're just aware of that property of the data. So I've decided this is the data set I'd like to use for my app. So with just a click, I'm going to begin creating my app. And I'm going to rename this Retail Apparel Sales Data because this data set includes some information about global clothing retail stores. And I'll go ahead and load that data in. And so then I have the option to go directly to a sheet and begin creating some visualizations, or I can actually go directly to Insight Advisor. And Insight Advisor will actually be able to help me look at some visualizations right away. So the cognitive engine has taken a look at all of my data, it's understood that data, and what it's going to do is enable Insight Advisor to produce a bunch of different visualizations for me that are most relevant based on the contents of that data. So I can see here I have a whole bunch of valuable information. So I have my cost of sales, some information about my orders. I can see some in sales and cost of sales by country and city. So immediately I have some really valuable visualizations. But before I begin adding those to my sheet, I'm actually going to add some additional data to my app. So one of the great things about Qlik is how easy it is to combine multiple data sources and then be able to explore multiple data sources in one experience. So I'm going to take a look here. These are all of my options for adding or connecting data. I can connect it directly to a data source if I wanted to, so SAP or Snowflake. What I'm actually just going to do for the purpose of the demo is add another data file. So I have more sales and order data that's related to those retail clothing stores. And this data set actually has multiple tables, so I'm going to select all of the tables to add into my app. And next I'll be taken to the data load screen where I'll actually be able to visually associate my data. So this is the associative engine actually helping me determine the most relevant relationships between my data and the tables. So I can do this somewhat manually. If I hold down the bubble, the color coding scheme helps me understand where the strongest associations are. But actually if I just hit preview all, the associative engine will create all of the associations for me. So by looking at the whole data set, the associative engine understands the most significant relationships. It's similar to joins, but we refer to this as associations because we're not leaving any data behind as we create the data model. So now that my data model is all set, I'll go ahead and apply the associations, and I'll load that data into my app. And then I'm taken right back to Insight Advisor. So I could begin generating insights, but actually I want to do one other thing before I do that, which is to take a look at my logical model. So the logical model is where I can create rules and behaviors based on the specific context of my business information. So the language of my data, anything specific to my industry, or any preferences I have around how I would like to view the data that Insight Advisor produces for me. So I've already created a couple of calendar periods over here, and what I'm going to do now is just create a behavior based on how I'd like to see my data from a time perspective. So we'll select order calendar, and for time period, I'm actually going to tell Insight Advisor that I'd like to view information in terms of current quarter and last quarter as well. So now I'll go back to Insight Advisor now that I've created that behavior, and I'll ask Insight Advisor to generate some insights. So similar to earlier, I now have a whole bunch of new visualizations, and you can see here, Insight Advisor understands that behavior that I set, and it's showing me the data in terms of current quarter and last quarter. If I wanted to get more specific, I could start selecting some fields over here on the left so that I could get a bit more specific in terms of the visualizations that I'd like to see. So country, and we can also add discount to this. So now Insight Advisor has updated the visualizations based on some of my specific preferences. And so now I can start to scroll down, get a better look at my visualizations, begin adding some to the sheet. So we have sum of sales by country. We'll add that visualization to my sheet. There's also a Pareto analysis down here. We'll add that. And over here, this last visualization looks a little bit different than some of the other ones. So I'll expand that and take a closer look. And what Insight Advisor has done here is actually create an entire sheet or dashboard based on those specific fields I was interested in. So this has all of my sales data by country. It's telling me how I'm doing against my target. It also highlights down here that it's applying that analysis period that I set up in the logical model. So I'll add this sheet to my app as well. Now, those are some examples of how Insight Advisor can produce some visualizations right away for me. But another thing that I can do to begin getting insights and taking a look at my data is actually just to use natural language. So I can type in cost of good and discount by country. And Insight Advisor will understand what I'm looking for and produce some visualizations back for me. And so here I'm getting visualizations. I'm also getting some specific text. So Insight Advisor is telling me specifically what my cost of good is and what my discount is as well. But then, of course, I get some of the additional visualizations that show that data in a variety of different ways in a bit more detail. So for example, down here I have this k-means analysis, so it shows me all of my data and then uses the color coding scheme to group relevant groups as well. So I'll add this one to my sheet, and now we'll go to my sheet and take a look and see how that dashboard is progressing. So in my sheet, I can also add some visualizations. I can go over here on the left and open up my fields. And I can simply drag and drop the fields that I'm interested in taking a closer look at. So for example, I'd like to look at sales by category name. So I can just drag and drop sales, drag and drop category name. And up here in the upper right, you can see chart suggestions is turned on. So that means QlikSense is actually helping me with that visualization creation process. It understands the data I'm interested in looking at and then presents it in the most relevant visualization for me. But of course, I can also turn chart suggestions off and make some of my own customizations. So I can change the sorting a little bit. I can also change the colors a little bit as well. So we can look at visualization by measure, and then we can add a gradient. So that's how easy it was with really just a few clicks, and with the help of Insight Advisor, I was able to create not one, but two really powerful sheets, and now I can begin doing some exploration and analysis of my data. So I'll start just by making some selections. For example, I want to look at 3 of my categories here, so we'll highlight those, and you'll notice all of my visualizations update accordingly. Now what it's doing is showing me the data in the context of those 3 categories that I've selected. So that's the associative engine enabling me to still look at the context of my entire data, but drill into those specific 3 categories. I can make some additional selections as well, so if I want to look at my top 3 countries here, I can do that. And you can see up here, I'm looking at all of my data in the context of my category name and my country, the category names and countries I've selected. So as I scroll to the next sheet, my selections actually stay with me. So I'm still looking in that same context of category name and country, but I still have all of my visualizations on the sheet. They've all just updated in the context that I'm interested in viewing. So I can take another look at the country dropdown up here, and the associative engine is actually giving me a little bit more information here, because I can still see the full context of my data, so I have all my countries, but the color scheme is giving me a little bit more information. So the green rows are the selections that I opted in. So I wanted to look at France, Germany, United Kingdom specifically. But I still have all my other countries listed here. And the ones in light gray, that's the associative engine telling me these are countries that are relevant to my selections. So these are countries that are also selling the categories that I've selected as well. These just weren't the countries that I chose to look at in more detail. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, I can see that Norway's in dark gray. That's the associative engine telling me that Norway actually isn't selling any of my categories. So Norway isn't relevant to my selections at all. So that might be something I want to look at in a little bit more detail, why Norway doesn't happen to have any sales for those 3 categories. So that's an insight I wasn't necessarily looking for, but because the associative engine makes sure that I have access to the full scope of my data at all times, I was able to get a little bit of a deeper insight and a better understanding of what's going on with some of my sales. Another option I have is to actually use associative search to search across my data for insights that I'm interested in. So for example, I might want to look at sportwear in Germany and France. So even if I don't know exactly where to look in my app, I can just use associative search to begin looking for the specific areas that I'm interested in my data. And so you can see right away all of my visualizations update so that I'm looking at sportwear in those 2 countries. And if I scroll back to the other sheet, of course my context remains, and I can see that these visualizations have updated as well. So that was a quick overview of how Insight Advisor and the associative engine can work together to help me load data and create insights and explore my data as well. Next, I'm going to highlight some of the ways that I can easily access my data and insights as well. So we'll start off, clear my selections. And one thing I might want to do is highlight one of these visualizations to monitor directly in the hub. So I'll select this visualization, and I'll choose to monitor it. So now when I go back to my personal space in the Cloud Hub, that visualization will be there, and I'll be able to see it every time that I log into the Cloud Hub. And so I can see it right here in my chart section. Another option I have is to ask Insight Advisor for some information. So Insight Advisor, it's a fully conversational natural language analytics tool that I can access here directly from the Cloud Hub. And I can ask it anything and it'll understand my intent and provide some relevant data. So first I'll check the apps that are enabled for Insight Advisor chat. I'm going to change gears a little bit and use this app that has some office supplies sales data. And I'll ask, what are my total sales? And Insight Advisor can provide narrative insights, auto-generated charts, other observations. So here it gives me my sales figure. I can also ask, what about margin? And then again, it'll provide that specific information back to me. I can also look at some of the suggestions that Insight Advisor provides. And maybe I want to take a closer look at margin by city. So in addition to the narrative insights, this time I can get a visualization. And because QlikSense always wants to ensure that I can explore my data in any direction at any time, it's giving me the option to explore this further, explore my margin by city in a little bit more detail. And now what it's done is dropped me into Insight Advisor, and Insight Advisor understood that I was looking for data about margin, so it's provided a bunch of different visualizations where I can explore my margin in a bit more detail. Now I'm going to go back and look at some of the sheets in this app. So I've got my dashboard here. I can see sales, margin, number of orders, a bunch of information about various subcategories and my sales reps. What I actually would like to do is create an alert. So I'm interested in keeping an eye on my margin. So what I'm going to do is actually set up a margin monitoring alert. And this will tell me whenever there's some significant changes to my margin. So we'll set some measures, margin percent, sales, and cost. And I'll also want to monitor by subcategory. So instead of looking at the high-level groupings of my products, I want to get a little bit more specific and go into specific product areas. And now I'll set the condition for my alert. And we'll set the value. We'll do a standard deviation. So we'll do greater than a standard deviation of 1. And we'll have the alert based on when there's a refresh of the data. And if I wanted to, I could add someone to receive this alert as well. So if I wanted Charles to receive the alert, I could add him to the distribution as well. So this isn't just an alert that'll tell me anytime there's been a slight change in my data, but it's telling me when there's a significant change to my margin, I'll be alerted and I'll be able to take a closer look at those subcategories. So now I will go back to the hub. And my office supplies data app is right here. So what I'm going to do is manually reload that data. And while that data is reloading, I'm going to switch gears and go over to my mobile app. So now I've switched over to my mobile app. And if I check my notifications up in the upper right-hand corner, I can see that I've gotten an alert pushed to my phone around that margin monitoring alert that I set. So I'm going to open that up and take a closer look. And here I have all the subcategories that had a significant change in margin. So that alert pushed right to my phone, and I have all the information right here based on that condition that I set. And if I wanted to take a closer look, I could view that data in the app. I have my executive summary, my sales, my margin, my number of orders, and here I can start to scroll down and I can take a closer look at that margin percent by subcategory and also by rep as well. I can also make selections. So for example, if I just wanted to look at data in the context of my East region, I can make that selection. And all of my data will update accordingly, and now I'll be able to view all of my information in that context. So if I go back to my executive summary, for example, I can see that all of my data has updated based on that selection I made. And my mobile app is a really similar experience to QlikSense. When I'm working on my computer, I can make all of my selections, I have instant access to my data, and I can explore and analyze my data in any context that I'd like. And now I'm going to actually scroll back to the hub. And if I wanted to, one other thing I can do is actually download my app. And what that'll enable me to do is have offline access to my app. So if I'm not on my network, I have that complete ClickSense experience. I can still explore and analyze my insights even when I'm not connected to the network. So my mobile app gives me a full offline and online experience. So I have access to my data at all times. And then with that data alert capability, even when I'm on the go and maybe away from the office, I can get instant notification when there's been a significant change in my data, and I can do some additional analysis and take action right away.
So that was an example of how quickly and easily I was able to load and combine multiple data sources, and with the help of Associative Engine and Insight Advisor, I was able to get some really rich visualizations and create visualizations as well, and search across the full spectrum of my data and uncover some hidden insights along the way. Then with capabilities like chart monitoring and data alerts, I always have instant access to my data and notifications when there's important changes to my data, so I can take action right away. Josh, I'm going to pass it back to you.
As you just saw, we're increasing the analytic value of organizations. Starting with sources on the left end of the slide, you see not only on-premise data sources that data integration can provide a path for customers to move data to the cloud or into modern technologies, but also from cloud to cloud into a multi-cloud and hybrid cloud environments. And being able to take that raw data and be able to move it into the next phase in which we can then add additional value. We're creating new data on top of the raw data that is really driving the next step of the analytical journey towards increasing the analytical value. Then being able to characterize and describe that data using the catalog that our end users can use to solve problems. I'm getting access to the data, whether it be in the dataset form or being accessed through natural language, being able to actually describe it through the notion of a business glossary enabled by our technology. And then last, we take that data and drive it into the full life cycle of analytics. Picture by including it in insights in a traditional analytics application, but expanding that to alerting, expanding that to insights that are in the hub, expanding that to being able to share and collaborate. We call this the analytical data pipeline, which is bigger than a data pipeline, which is really about driving data into targets. It's really about managing that data throughout the entire life cycle from source to insight to action. As such, we're actually going to harden this notion of an analytical data pipeline on the system so that you can actually create them, orchestrate them, manage them, and consume them on behalf of other problems you're trying to solve. We already have many customers who are embracing the analytical data pipeline to achieve the state of active intelligence. Vancouver International Airport, the top-rated airport in North America for the last 10 years, is accelerating business value through data. The amount of time that passengers with bags need to move between flights is known as the minimum connection time, is a key indicator of the efficiency of major airports. Using Qlik data integration and analytics apps across the organization, Vancouver International Airport has been able to seamlessly merge multiple data sets to better track the performance of key strategic connection processes. Insights gained through the Qlik dashboards have enabled major airports to focus its capital projects and operational planning efforts to help materially reduce the minimum connection times. The new data hub ecosystem has enabled the airport to cut the time to run the metric from 33 hours to 40 seconds. Now that's active intelligence in action. Simply put, to drive action in a cloud world, you need an analytical data pipeline so you can find those business moments which compel action. Only Qlik's vision of active intelligence can achieve this because it is supported by unique integrated cloud native capabilities.